think anytime we hear a story about leadership, we look at it like it's common sense. But common sense is not common practice. And I think hearing the stories that these leaders provide give all of us a roadmap to being better at influencing other people.
I can't think of a better time to take advantage of the literally hundreds of years of experience that you will glean in a very succinct and practical way through the wonderful stories that are included in this book.
Each chapter in this book represents a different leader who is willing to share and impart their knowledge and wisdom to turn you into a leader.
The stories are inspiring and illustrative, and they offer insightful and practical advice from exceptional leaders who have achieved extraordinary accomplishments, transformations, and change.
I know that I've always found the most important thing I can do is watch other leaders. What makes them successful, and what can I emulate that might make me a better leader?
The personal stories of how individual leaders overcame the challenges that they were facing is going to be most helpful to people.
I think one of the things folks can get out of this book is learning from someone else's mistakes, right? I've learned a lot from my own mistakes along the way, and have been able to share some of that.
These are amazing people with incredible backgrounds offering their own lessons of experience to all of us.
The biggest takeaway from Lessons from Leaders is that there's a wide variety of leadership styles, and it's important that you find the best style for you and be genuine to yourself.
The more you understand how leadership contributes to the goals and objectives of the organization, the better you're going to be at helping everybody to fit in, participate, and bring their best selves to work together.
Hi everyone, and welcome to today's event. Please let us know where you're joining from in the chat section. We are thrilled to have so many of you joining the conversation to discuss the unique challenges that leaders are facing today and some of the key leadership lessons from the book, Lessons from Leaders. Lessons from Leaders is a diverse collection of candid stories from 15 remarkable leaders who share their insights, experiences, and the practical lessons we can all apply to shape our own personal leadership journeys. With that, I would like to introduce to you to today's host, Sam Shriver, the Executive Vice President of Thought Leadership and Training Transfer at the Center for Leadership Studies, the author of From Coach to Coach and the 4 Moments of Truth, and co-author of Lessons from Leaders. Welcome, Sam.
To Eric and everybody with the Center for Leadership Studies for putting this together, and a special shout out to Sarah MacArthur for all of your tireless work in making this happen. I can't begin to tell you how excited we are for this next 60 minutes. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam. We also have a very special guest with us today who is one of the extraordinary leaders that shares his story in the book. Alan Mulally is an aeronautical engineer who became an executive vice president of the Boeing Company, CEO of Boeing Commercial Airplanes, and president of Boeing Information, Space, and Defense Systems before becoming the CEO of the Ford Motor Company, where he orchestrated one of the most prolific turnarounds in corporate history. Alan, we are so excited to have you with us today.
Well, hi, Susie. It's a pleasure to be with you and Sam and Eric, and I really look forward to our conversation this morning.
Absolutely. So Sam, over to you.
Here we go. Alan, I'm a visionary, and I can see that like the next 60 minutes are going to fly by. So allow us, if you don't mind, to just dive into this pool. I'm interested in you kind of starting out maybe in general, tell us about your leadership service and how that came to be in terms of how you developed your working together principles and practices management system.
Well, I'd be glad to do that, Sam, and great to be with you. So I started out growing up in the Midwest in Kansas, and I was influenced a lot by my parents. We didn't have a lot of resources, but we had a lot of love. And each day they would say things like, now remember, honey, the purpose of life is to love and be loved, in that order. I said, okay, Mom, thanks a lot. Then the next day my dad would say, now remember, honey, to serve is to really live. Yes, Dad, thank you very much. And then the next day my mom would say, it's nice to be important, honey, but it's more important to be nice. Thanks, Mom. And the one that really got me, Sam, was, so if you learn to work together with others, you're going to make a big difference to the world and the greater good. So with that kind of a background, I really wanted to get a pair of Levi's shoes and maybe some Weegens or Levi jeans and a pair of Weegens and maybe go to college someday. And so I started working in grocery store and lawn mowing business and paper route and construction. And so I just love serving, and I love seeing the smiles on people's faces when I exceeded their expectations. And so I grew up that way. I went to the University of Kansas, studied engineering, aeronautical and astronautical engineering. And then I found my first love at Boeing. And I'll just never forget seeing the airplanes for the first time and realizing that they were about safe and efficient transportation and getting people together around the world. And then I had the honor to serve on the design team of every Boeing airplane, the 707, the 727, the 737. I love to go do this slowly. The 747, the 757, the 767. And then I was asked to serve as the chief project engineer of the 777 airplane, and then the director of engineering and the program manager. And then when I became CEO of Boeing, I helped launch the 787. And if you look at all of the seats that are flying today, 60 to 70% of all the seats that are flying are in Boeing airplanes, providing this phenomenal, safe and efficient transportation. And then I never thought I would leave Ford, but then I got a call from Bill Ford. I'd leave Boeing, but I got a call from Bill Ford. And Bill told me about Ford and the situation they were in and asked me if I'd come and help. And at the end of the day, I decided that I was being asked to serve as second in American global icon. And so I loved serving at Ford, not only saving Ford, but also turning around Ford and creating a viable, exciting, profitable, growing Ford. So working together, to your question about working together. So airplanes are very, very sophisticated, as we all know, and they have around 4 million parts in an airplane. And when you're creating a new airplane, you have, it's an invention that you deliver all the performance, all the safety, all the reliability, maintainability 4 years later. So it's an invention on schedule. And every airplane has a compelling vision of the airplane. Like, is it going to be short range, long range, point to point, nonstop, polar routes? And also it's really important that you really clear about what's the strategy for achieving that. Not only the technical strategy, but the people strategy, the partnership strategy, including all the stakeholder strategy, how are you going to do it, the digital product definition, the digital pre-assembly, everything needs to be clear. And so over the years, you can imagine that you have 500 to 600,000 people that are working on this airplane around the world, the most talented people in the world. And so working together needs to be really, really important and the highest agenda item. And so over the years, I've learned a lot about working together. And I actually have made a slide with everything I know to share with everybody today. And so, Eric, if you could show my working together slide, please. Well, there you go. And so this is everything I know, Sam. And what I'd like to do is share a little bit about each of these items, and then we can talk about them going forward here. Yeah. So these are my working together principles and practices and the management system that we've used over the years at Boeing on every airplane program. And then when we integrated McDonnell Douglas and Rockwell into Boeing to create the #1 aerospace company. And also then this is a piece of paper that I took with me to Ford. So the first one is people first. And that's code for love them up. Love them up. These are wonderful, talented people that are building the cathedral. And so they need to be appreciated and respected and included. It's just so important that it's all about people working together. Everyone's included. And that means all of the stakeholders, not only just the employees, the suppliers, the investors, the bankers, the traveling public, the airlines themselves, the countries in which we certify the airplane. We include everybody on the plan. They're all represented by members on the leadership team. You can see the importance of a compelling vision, a comprehensive strategy, and relentless implementation. Like we talked about the vision and the strategy, and the relentless implementation was our creating value roadmap, where we described the entire strategy for achieving the vision. And then every week we would have a business plan review where all of the leaders from around the world would be all linked up, and we would be sharing the vision, the strategy, the plan, and also the status and the areas need special attention. So that was our management system that we used to implement our working together. Clear performance goals, so important. One plan. Usually in most companies, there are a lot of plans and everybody's wondering what the plan is. So the most thing is to be really clear about what the plan. We use facts and data a lot. We care about what people think, their opinions, but what we really want to know is what's the data? What's the data say? And what are they looking at to draw those conclusions so we can go forward together with confidence? Then looking on the right-hand side, everyone knows the plan, the status, and the areas need special attention. Really, we're going to share not only the technical plan, but also the financial plan and the people plan, how we're going to include everybody plan, everything. We're going to share everything with everybody, because if we don't know the areas need special attention, then we don't know the right things to work on together. So we actually, each member of the team will color code their area of the plan and the status against that plan. Is it green? Is it on plan? Is it yellow? We have an issue, but we have a solution. Or is it a red item where we have a problem or a challenge and we don't have a solution yet? So you can imagine that a problem now is not a problem, but it's a gem. We say, thank you so much for sharing what the reality is, so we can work on the reds together and turn them to yellows and to greens. And then you can see the importance of the behaviors and the attitudes. Propose a plan, positive, find a way attitude. It always makes me think of Henry Ford's quote that if you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. A positive can-do attitude is that there's always a way. There's always a way to find a way or develop a better plan for that area. Emotional resilience is important because one needs to expect the unexpected and expect to deal with it. This is an invention, 4 million parts. It's not going to go exactly per the plan on the schedule. So be ready for those gems and be ready to work together to turn those reds to yellows to greens. And then trust the process of working together. Go right back up to the top, go right straight down, include everybody, make sure that everybody knows what the issues are. We have a plan, status, we're working on them. So trust the process, which also helps with your emotional resilience. The last one is kind of special. Have fun, enjoy the journey in each other. I have never enjoyed working together like we have at Boeing and Ford on all of these important airplanes and cars and trucks and delivering safe and efficient transportation. It's just so much fun. And what's really fun about it is not only the products and services, but also working with each other and seeing what we can do individually and together and feel the satisfaction of that meaningful accomplishment. Now, a corollary to that, Sam, is really important, and that is never a joke, never humor at anybody else's expense. Now, we all know what that's like, and people will go along to get along, but it's never funny. And the thing about humor at other people's expense when it comes to working together is that it detracts from a safe environment. If people don't feel like they can say what they think, and it's not a safe environment, then they're not going to share what's really going on. And now we're managing a secret. We don't know what the real situation is. So again, have fun, enjoy each other, enjoy the journey, but no jokes or humor at others' expense. A couple of other things on the chart for fun. So PGA with a big heart next to it. PGA does not stand for Professional Golf Association. It stands for Profitable Growth for All. And if you're in business, a profit, nonprofit, then your goal is to create value for the greater good. And you can measure that with profits, because profits equals revenue times margins. And if you're in business, to grow the business profitably, that means you make products and services that people want and value and they'll pay for. And you work your quality and efficiency every year. And so revenue times margins equals profits. The company will grow. Everybody in the company will benefit. All the stakeholders will benefit, and the greater good will benefit. So PGA for all. Now the other one is, that's my airplane. Now remember, I'm a airplane designer, and so every time that I wasn't needed when I was working with the airlines, I'd represent the airplane. Then I'd sit down and then I'd draw my airplane, and then I'd write my equations of motion around it, just to enjoy myself technically. And so one time I was in Guangzhou, China, and I was representing the 777 airplane technically, and I finished my presentation to the CEO and the chairman of the board of China Southern Airlines. And I sat down and I drew my airplane, and the chairman was sitting on the other side of the table, and he saw the airplane, and he stopped the meeting and he said, Mr. Mulally, that's your sign. That's your chop. That's your beam. And I've got, well, it really is. I really love designing these airplanes for you. And he said, well, I said, what do you think? He said, well, what I think is that this is the biggest, most important decision that we'll ever make for the company, is which airplanes we buy. And so I would like you to sign this purchase agreement with your name, Alan, and this airplane next to you. So I turned around to the contracts and the lawyers people that were sitting there, and I said, so what do you all think? And they said, Alan, or they say, Mr. Mulally, you can't sign a multi-billion-dollar contract with a doodle of an airplane. So I turned around to the chairman and I said, so what do you think? And he said, well, I'm only going to sign this contract if you sign with that wonderful airplane. So I turned around to the contracts and the lawyers people, and I said, so what do you think now? And they said, Ms. Mulally, we really like your airplane.
Yeah,
ever since then, I've always signed everything with the airplane. I saw it on a golf ball on eBay the other day for $129. So if this doesn't work out, maybe I can sell my airplanes. So those are the lessons that I've learned. I used them on all the airplane programs. I use it to create the largest #1 aerospace company in the world. And then these are the same principles and practices that I took to Ford. And we not only saved Ford with these principles and practices, but we also created an exciting, viable, profitably growing Ford. And as we all know, when we went through the financial crisis in 2008, and GM and Chrysler, our competitors, went bankrupt, and we're asking for precious taxpayer money, we were well on our way using these principles and practices to create a viable Ford, and we didn't have to ask for precious taxpayer money. So that's how the principles and practices and the management system was developed.
Well, I will tell you, for some reason, I flash on our mutual friend Marshall Goldsmith here, who is famous for saying a number of things, but one of them certainly is leadership is common sense, but it's by no means common practice. So if you look at these bullets and you hear you talking about them in the rear view mirror, it's like, well, isn't this easy? But there must have been times where people challenged this system, didn't go along with it, all of those different kinds of things. How did you handle, if in fact that was the case, which I assume it was, how did you handle people that didn't commit to this process or didn't commit to, kind of what you've laid out here in terms of their day-to-day activities?
Sure. A really important question, Sam, because you can imagine the importance of alignment across all the people all the stakeholders that are participating. So the most important thing about working together is that everybody knows the vision, the strategy, and the plan, and they know these expectations for the process the business plan review, the creating value roadmap, but then they also know the behaviors. And so there's the other principle is that there's no exception. There's that for violating these principles and practices. And so make sure that everybody knows them, and then we need to hold ourselves accountable, starting with the leader and the team, for following these principles and practices with zero tolerance for violating them. So here's what happens every once in a while. So we're often things are going well, and we end up, of course, with people every once in a while that they deviate from these principles and practices, especially the behaviors. And so I remember one time where a senior leader we're all around the table in the Thunderbird room at Ford, and we're going through the entire plan. And this person, was very smart and wanted to correct everybody, make sure that they knew what he thought about what they were saying and stuff. Well, that was very intimidating, and it wasn't respectful, and he wasn't listening to him, and he wasn't seeking to understand before he seeked to be understood. So it was slowing down the working together. So I followed him up to his office a couple of times, and I said, I held up the principles and practices. You're not really following these, and you can see that it's really hurting the culture of working together. And so I really need you to consider committing to them again. And the person I was talking to said, well, I understand that, and I understand why we're doing it, because we need the hearts and minds of everybody. It's a very competitive environment, but I don't know whether I can do it. This is not the way I was raised. I know I'm a command and control person, and I'm intimidating, and so I don't know whether I can do it, Alan. And I said, well, I understand, and if you can't, it's okay. And Sam, his eyes lit up, a big smile came over his face, and he said, oh, Alan, so this means that I'm so important in my job here that I'm going to get an exception to these principles and practices. And I said, well, not quite. What it means is if you're going to choose not to commit to these behaviors, then you're choosing to move on. And I want you to know it's okay. Remember that first principle was we love you and we want you to be happy. Matter of fact, we know you're going to be happier, and the team's going to be happier. I'm going to be happier. So if it doesn't work for you, then let me know. And by the way, I want to know tomorrow morning what your answer is. Are you going to commit to them or not? And if you make a mistake, just say you're sorry. That was the first time I think I heard the sorry word there. And just say you're sorry, and if you need some help, maybe some coaching, counseling to help you, we'll do that for you too. But the most important thing is that you tell us all that you're going to commit to these working together principles and practices. So let me know in the morning. So the next morning he came in and he said, I've thought about it. I understand it, but I don't think I can do it. And I said, well, we wish you the very best. And he left, and he did fine in a different environment. Another example, another leader, she was so good, so articulate, but a lot of times she would not ask questions to seek to understand, but it was almost like a rhetorical questions, because she was checking people out to see if they really understood. And of course, everybody figures that out really fast, and they didn't feel safe now. And so she was detracting from working together. So I followed her up to her office, and we had the same conversation. And I said, you need to decide. And she said, let me know tomorrow morning. And she came back and said, I really think this is an opportunity for me to grow as a leader and as a person. And so I would like to commit to these behaviors. And I'd like to tell everybody, and I'd like to ask them that when they see me violating them or falling back, that just say it to me in a positive way. And because I really want to become this kind of a leader. And Sam, she became one of the most phenomenal leaders that I've ever worked with. And so the most important thing to your question is one, be really clear, very intentional about the behaviors that we're all going to commit to. And two, hold yourself and the team accountable for following and do it in a positive, loving, supportive way.
Yeah, and just for the benefit of everybody that is with us today around the world, it sounds to me as though you were far more focused on the how than the what. So let me redirect that question to you as a senior leader in your leadership team. What's the role of the leader and the leadership team as you drive, kind of the working together principles, if you had to encapsulate it?
Absolutely. Another great question. So it really is about the what and the how. And if you look at that management system, everybody knows what we're about. They know the vision, they know the strategy, they know the plan for the airplane or the car or whatever. And they know the strategy for achieving it. And they also know the behaviors. So being clear about all of those, because that is the culture, is that we're here to do something that we can't do by ourselves. And it's all about not us, but what we're going to do individually and together to accomplish the organization's objectives. And so the most important thing for the leader and the leadership team, starting with them, is this holding ourselves accountable for following the process and the behaviors. And if we make a mistake, just apologize for it. And also, we would always include, as part of each of our personal development, is maybe what are the 2 or 3 things that we need to work on using stakeholder-centered coaching that you mentioned, Marshall. What are the 2 or 3 things that we can work on that everybody thinks would help improve each of ours individual contribution and our working together skills? But the most important thing is to hold ourselves accountable in a very positive way for following the principles, the practices, and the management system.
Well, I'll tell you, as you reflect there, if you don't mind me, I realize I'm not going to confession here. I get that. when you were talking about the whole idea of making jokes at other people's expense, I had, a personal moment, and I know that many people that know me and have worked with me over time that may be joining us are going, isn't this ironic that Sam would be with Alan talking about this? So to all of those people, I would just like to say I sincerely apologize. And I think that it really is, something that's a parallel between your system and what Marshall does. I mean, we're going to make mistakes, right? No matter how smart we are, no matter where we are in the organization, we're going to make mistakes. The biggest thing you got to do is say, you know what, I just messed up there. And you
think about what you're saying is positive accountability.
Yeah.
And you want to be held accountable for the good of yourselves, your own personal growth, and also for the good of the entire team.
Yeah, and the more you're emulating that as a senior leader, calling yourself out, the more other people see, well, isn't that weird? So maybe, like, I'm going to try that. And before you know it, you have, a much different working environment than you might have had when you started. How about focusing upon, elements specific to business performance? Like from your experience, what are the characteristics in leaders that really are most important for delivering business performance in your working together system?
Oh, sure. And I would expand your question to include all the participants, all the stakeholders, because as you know, like the Business Roundtable just came out with a really important statement about the purpose of business, and it has to be for the benefit of all the stakeholders, not just the shareholders. And that's the way that I've always operated, because it has to be for the greater good so that everybody benefits. And those are the companies that are going to be successful. And so if you think of the characteristics that you want to be around, and the leader and the leadership team and your colleagues, it really is leading with humility, with love, with a service attitude, leading courageously, with discipline. And so, and keeping your emotional resilience, your resilience itself. And so those characteristics are so compelling, and they're so positive, and they're so engaging, and it really creates this culture following this reliable process and the principles and practices, where you're creating a high performance culture where people feel that attracts smart people, but also creates a very safe environment so you can really work together to deliver high quality performance year after year.
Yeah, there must have been times, and I think I heard you talk. We were mentioning Marshall here quite a bit for good reason, but I remember you in a discussion with him, and it was about resilience in particular. There have to be times, when you as the leader bringing about the change that you brought about in the disruptive environment that you were in, and all of us are kind of in the middle of hopefully moving out of this disruptive environment that has occupied our last year. There have to be times when you question yourself and you question what's going on and all those kinds of things, the whole resiliency thing. And I remember you saying something to the effect when you were talking to Marshall of, well, then you go back up to loving people. That's what you do. When you find yourself kind of in those sets of circumstances where you need to be resilient, you just go back to the top of the list and
absolutely
and you start loving people, and
absolutely. The principles and practices are the culture. It's the way you live. It's what you're committed to. And a lot of times people will ask me, well, you're creating a commercial airplane that's 4 million parts that flies halfway around the world. The most safe and efficient transportation in the world. And how do you sleep at night when you have 600,000 people working on this and you have reds and yellows? And my answer is I sleep really well. I just got through with a business plan review. I'm networking with everybody around the world. We know all the reds, the yellows, and greens. I've probably missed 10 BPRs over 45 years doing this at Boeing and at Ford, because you can always call in and you want to see the movement of all the changes. You want to see what the reds turn into yellows and greens and the new red, and celebrating those. And so you can imagine the most important thing is that everybody knows everything. They're all working on it. So go home at night and go to bed, get some sleep, and come back the next day with all your energy focused on working together.
Yeah. Maybe just a little bit of a bunny trail here. The first session that we did on LinkedIn Live was with Dr. Jim Kim, and he spent, for what it's worth, about 30% of his time talking about his relationship with you and when he visited Ford and all those kinds of things. And he said in a way that was just so candid. When I asked him, like, so what'd you learn from Alan Mulally? And he said, the thing I learned was to smile more. Just it was to smile more. And I said, wow, do you remember that? And can you talk about that?
I do. And
yes, there you go.
For all of the readers, on page, let me get it for you. On page 43, Dr. Kim talks about unlocking potential with humility. Whoa, one of your fantastic authors. So the point of that conversation was that everybody's watching you. You're the leader. It's not like you're the smartest person in the room, but the perspective you have is pretty broad, and you know everything that's going on, especially if you do it with working together, because everybody knows what's going on now, not just you, but everybody. And so if you have a frown on your face, they think something's wrong. And and what is it? And I thought we had it all out here in the open. So the most important thing is to smile and say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's the most honest thing you could possibly do. You just shared a red item. Thank you. The first time at Ford, when I tried to make this transition for them to understand it was okay to have a problem, it was a gem, is that we had all 300 charts in the business plan review, and they're all color-coded, and they're all green. Sam, they're all green. Seeing everything's on. I stopped the meeting. I said, because I shared this with them now, we're going to lose $17 billion. Is there anything, just maybe a couple of things are not going well? And because if we don't share this, we're not going to be able to work on it. So finally, one of the leaders had an issue with the launch of an Edge in Oakville, Canada. And so they stopped production. We're only going to deliver the finest quality. And so we're in the business plan review and all the green charts are coming. All of a sudden comes up this new red chart for quality, schedule. uh, and compliance. And the room just got quiet. First red. So I start, and Mark said, so we have this issue, but we don't have a problem, but we're working on it. So I started to clap, and everybody in that room and all the people networked around the world thought that was a sign. The two large doors behind me were going to open up. Two large human beings were going to come in and extract Mark from the meeting because he had a red item. Because in most companies, not all of them, but a vast majority, you only bring an issue up to your supervisor or your manager or your leader if you have a solution. So that means now that the whole place is managing a secret. They don't know what the real situation is. So this thing about transparency and authenticity and having a safe environment is what enables this working together performance.
Yeah, I will tell you that is one of the most compelling stories I have heard. And as you can probably see over my right shoulder, like the Center for Leadership Studies, we do situational leadership. That's what we do. And I think a traditional perspective on situational leadership is that the leader has the answers. And what the leader should do is assess the readiness of followers and then kind of, pick a style and make it happen. What you did, and I think brought to the forefront, is kind of the leader as facilitator, where you really get people to self-assess. You really get people to say, hey, tell me the truth here.
Coaching and facilitating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like if you don't know what you're doing, let me know, because I can't figure it out on my own. But so when you have that kind of conversation, then you can put in play something to sort of propel them forward.
You know why the working together system really works?
Why does it always work?
And the reason it always works is, one, you have a plan, and you're also working on the better plan. So as you go through the year, you're not only turning the reds to yellows to greens, but you're also going to put another bar out there for customer satisfaction, profits, employee satisfaction, community satisfaction. All your performance measures are going to go up. So the entire team is always working on not just delivering this year's plan, but also developing a better plan, meaning that we're all going to grow in those performance measures. And in every one of those business plan reviews, every member of the team goes over their view of the business environment and shares it with everybody. So we all know from an IT point of view or a product definition point of view or a legal point of view, here are all the things that are going on so that we can continually use that information to develop a better plan. So it always works, because even if you run into a problem that can't be solved, that's a gem too. So you develop a better plan for that element of the plan. So that's why it always works, because you're always working it together using everybody's intelligence.
Yeah, and obviously key word in that, and thank you for taking us there. It's always. If people use this system on the basis of your experience, it's always going to work. And how about this little gear switch? Most of our discussion, for good reason, has been focused on your responsibilities at work and what you do to professionally drive productivity and engagement and retention and all that stuff. Does this system work in a family setting? Does the your management system here, working together, does that work at home, so to speak? Probably a much more viable question for everybody out there, right?
Well, gosh, probably some of the kids are watching today, so they always remind me that I don't need to share everything, about our lives.
So I get that. Yeah.
So the answer is yes, and so Nikki and I are so fortunate that we've been married for 50 years now, and we have 5 children, wonderful children. And when we first started our family, and I was working at Boeing, and I was refining the working together management system. And of course, the business plan review is a really important part of that, where every week we review everything about the plan, the status of the plan, and the areas need special attention. And so I could see that we need to have a business plan review when we started having these kids with the whole family. Because when you have 7 people in the house, after a week, it looks like a bomb's gone off. And so, we need to have a business plan review. And Nikki never really warmed up to the business plan review title for it. So I thought, she said, this is not a business. This is our family. And I said, I thought, okay, how am I going to do that? Okay, how about we call it a family meeting? And she said, well, what will we do in the family meeting? And so I said, so I explained it to her. And she said, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And so this is what we did during our family meeting. And remember, we did this when they were 4 or 5 years old. They're in kindergarten. So we catch them young and we implement our working together system. Called a family meeting. So the first thing is we come back from Mass on Sunday. And the first agenda item was everybody would go through the house and pick up their stuff and get it back to their cubbies and then back to their rooms. Because we all didn't sign up to keep picking up the house for everybody. So that was very, very compelling. Then everybody would go back to their room and they'd get their laundry and they'd bring it down to the laundry room. And we'd usually have a couple of washers and dryers because you need to turn this stuff fast or you're going to be doing this all week long. So we do the laundry together, and then we bring all of the clothes out of the dryers down, put them on the kitchen table, and then we sort all the laundry. And when you have 7 people, you can't sort the socks. Who belongs to all this stuff? Plus, it's not a compelling vision to do the laundry every week. So, and of course, if we do it together, we could have it done in 15 minutes. Excuse me. So the next agenda item is they go back to their room, Sam. They get their calendar, which is 3 little spiral notebook, and they bring it down. They're in kindergarten, Sam. They're in kindergarten. So they sit down around the table, round table, and then we go around the room, and every person, including Nikki and myself, we would share what we're doing in the coming week and what kind of help did we need. Did we need taxi cab service? Did we need cheerleading support? Did we have parent-teacher conference? What help? And then we'd all pencil in on our calendars what we were going to do to participate and help each other. And then I'd go back to the office and I'd give it to my assistant, and she'd build it into my calendar. And sometimes I'm there, sometimes I'm not, but everybody knew that they knew where I was and what I was doing. And so then the next agenda item was we would pull out our piece of paper that was like our working together piece of paper, and it would have our vision for the family and our strategy for achieving it and the behaviors that we were going to exhibit. And then we kind of check with each other. How's that going? Well, when they were starting out, they'd be pretty brutal on each other. You said you're going to pick me up and you didn't, and I felt like I was let down. Or, the way you said that to me acted like you already decided what the answer should be. And so you can imagine if you do that every week, the skills that they developed on how to work together with each other and how to treat each other and how to talk to each other and how to seek to understand before they seek to be understood. It was great. And then another one, when it was fun when I got to be by teenagers, is that we go around the room, and if whatever you're going to do in the following week that could impact our family, you need to tell us ahead of time. So if you're going to break the law, or you're going to, I don't care what you're going to do. If you're going to do something that's going to affect our family, you got to let us know ahead of time. It's our family. Well, it didn't stop all the behaviors that teenagers do, but it really helped. So as I got older, excuse me, every time we would get together, somehow we'd always end up on the family meeting that we start laughing about it and all the funny things that happened during it. And so I said to him one time, I said, so, if you didn't like the family meeting or you didn't enjoy it, why did you guys keep coming to it? And they said, Dad, do you remember what the last agenda item was on our family meeting? And I said, yeah. No, I don't. And they said, you passed out the allowances. We had to go to the family meeting. Now, just so you know, every one of those wonderful kids are running their version of the family meeting, because it is the way to pull everybody together around a compelling vision and a strategy and a plan to achieve it and have fun.
Well, I tell you what, the chatter that we're getting from people around the world on that story is compelling in and of itself in terms of the focus there. And I know that my own children right now are wondering why I wasn't that smart, with laundry. And they're really secretly wishing they were a Mulally. But
Well, for people out there, I know Eric and I know Susie, and they are really, really neat people. So you did a good job.
Still jealous, but yeah, no, and I would agree with that. But why do you think, since we have a few more minutes here, like why, what drives the whole idea of people being philosophically different in their personal lives than they are when they go to work? And we've all met them and seen them, and maybe even been them, where when you come home, right, you're one way, and then boy, when you put on the battle armor and you head to the office, if we ever do that again, virtual or real, and you just become somebody different. What drives that, and what advice would you have, for those people based on your experience as a leader,
Oh, sure.
and as a parent?
Excuse me. That's another really important question. You think about it, is that we go back to the working together principles and practices, and in every company has a culture, and we know the cultures that really feel good. It's safe. You know the plan. You know the status. You know your role in it. You're getting feedback positively. You feel like you can be vulnerable and ask questions, not be scared of being taken advantage of. And so we know what that culture looks like. We know what it feels like. And we also know that we have to adapt to whatever culture we're in, because we want to survive. I mean, we want to work, we want to have a job, we have responsibilities. And so I've always wanted to be in an environment where I could make a difference and I could serve. And so those are the environments that I not only look for, but as I was asked to take on more and more leadership responsibility, I took full responsibility for creating that environment. And I've watched this over and over again, and all the wonderful people I've had a chance to work with, that when they have left a program that we're on, and they go to another culture, another environment, and it's not the same, they can't ever go back. They'll move on. They'll move on till they find that environment, because it's like Grendel's mother, an extended family down in the swamp. When you move out of the swamp and all those behaviors, and you feel what it's like to operate in the light, and it's warm and it's nurturing, and you're appreciated as a human being, and people are appreciating your dignity as a human being, you're never going to go back once you've been in that environment. And I feel the same way. I know you feel the same way. I know Susie and Eric and Sarah feel the same way. You'll never go back, because once you felt what it's like to operate in the light. So really, every one of us is going to contribute to that environment or not. I don't care where you are in the organization, because this leadership thing starts with you individually. Every one of us individually, who we are as a person. It's nice to kind of understand why you are who you are. That's always helpful. What you do and how you do it. And be aware and look in the eyes of the people you're working with. Do they want to run away? That's a message to you. Do they want to be with you? Do they want to work together with you? And so I think the future in this world, a rapidly changing world, is going to be centered more and more about people working together for the greater good, meaning that we're all going to benefit. That make sense?
It makes nothing but head shaking sense. Yes, yes, yes. If as we enter the, pretty close to the time we have to depart here, and I knew this 60 minutes was going to go fast. Thank you very much. Is there net bottom line any advice that you would have for anybody in a leadership position out there that's listening or that will watch this tape, just kind of encapsulating? So here, if I was you, this is what I'd be looking for, and this is what I'd do. And maybe you've already stated it, and you just have to, rephrase.
Well, I think that you got really, really close to that when you're asking about the characteristics of leaders, that are really powerful. And I would expand that to say everybody. And I think that gets back to creating this culture and leading with humility, love, and service, and courage, and discipline, and resilience, and being that as a person, being that. And then you add onto that diversity and inclusion. I remember when I was growing up, and we were right next to the University of Kansas, and our parents would invite all of the students that couldn't go home around the world for Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever. And I would sit around that table, and I couldn't get enough of them. I mean, I wanted to know about who they were, why they were, their country, their family. And what I learned traveling all around the world with Boeing and Ford, in those meetings in college with all the students from around the world, is that we really do have more in common than we're different. And we really can choose together, work together for the greater good. And so just reflecting on that, being aware of that, I think just enables you to move forward in a very, very positive way.
Well,
I know you got to go. You're probably on tight time frame.
No. Believe me, I would stay here for the rest of the day. But in terms of wrapping this up in the hour, I again, just on behalf of everybody at the Center for Leadership Studies, would like to say sincere thanks, for this hour, and also for participating in this project with bias duly noted. I would say to anybody that is interested in purchasing this book, which Susie will talk about in just a second or two, get it, spend the $20, go to page 60, read page 60 to 73, which is Alan's chapter. And if you don't feel like you got $20 worth of value out of that, I will buy it back from you. I will tell you, Alan, from my perspective, you have forgotten more than most of us will ever know about leadership. And I thank you, and I'm honored to have had this opportunity.
Sam, thanks a lot. And just a comment. I sure agree. The authors that you have in here, the people that you have asked, their insights are wonderful. I've read every one of them. I want to meet every one of them, and their authenticity, their thoughtfulness, their sharing is terrific. And I know we all know this, but learning from others and people we believe in, and that create an environment that we want to participate in, this is the best way to learn. And I think congratulations to you and the other authors, and for your to Susie and to Eric and all the people that contributed to this. It really is a very special book, and I wish everybody enjoys it as much as I have and learns from it.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir. Sue's back to you.
Thank you so much, Alan and Sam. This has been an incredible hour, and we just really appreciate your time and willingness to have this conversation about leadership, but more importantly, the working together principles and lessons from leaders. If you are interested in purchasing the book, please visit lessonsfromleadersbook.com for more on Alan's story and the contributions of 15 additional exceptional leaders. Also, join the conversation on Lessons from Leaders on our LinkedIn page. So thank you again.
This book will give you a wide array of really interesting, thoughtful, and practical ideas from some incredibly wise people.
It provides such a rich variety of leadership journeys from so many great leaders with different backgrounds, experiences, and areas of focus and service.
I think you're going to find this entertaining, it's going to be practical, and it's lessons from leaders that you can take back.
Pick up a copy of Lessons from Leaders.